Hey guys, Josh here from Sportitude Running, and today it is shoe review time, and we're going to be talking all things New Balance 1080 version 11. This shoe here has just landed in Australia the mid part of January, and it's a very exciting shoe to talk about because there's not a lot that's changed in this model from the version 10, and that is a good thing because when a brand gets their design right, which they did in the version 10, they don't want to change too much. They want to keep the momentum of this shoe going. Yes, of course, there's a couple of minor adjustments which we'll get into in today's review, but what we'll be doing is we're going to be talking about the outsole, the midsole, and the upper, comparing it to the version 10, profiling the foot type that could be considering this shoe, and who knows, give you all the information that you need at home to add this to your shoe rotation or not. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So first thing we're going to do is talk about the foot type that could be considering the 1080 version 11. Now it is a neutral shoe. So what we mean by that is there is no additional arch support on the medial side through here. So that's been the case with the 1080 series forever and a day. And so it's a neutral shoe. It's designed for high mileage running, so a lot of cushioning underneath the foot. But on that medial side, it is the same density in relation to the lateral side. So there's no additional arch support underneath the medial side. So we're going to be looking at a foot type that doesn't look too dissimilar to this through here. So like in my shoe reviews gone by, we like to sort of show you at home what a static foot position looks like for a neutral to supinated foot. So what we mean by that is you can see there's a high arch that sits on this medial side through here. So this concept of the runner will be coming down, ground contact, going through to mid starts, before they get themselves engaged and ready to then toe off. A lot of the pressure will be either through the central part of the foot or the lateral side through here. Being that high arch, we might just see the foot to ever so slightly supinate, or underpronate is another term we use in store here as well. So the pressure is either going to be through the middle part of the foot or towards that lateral component as the runner gets ready to then toe off. However, we do find some success in fitting mildly overpronated foot types that would look something like this. So you can see the neutral foot type, higher arch, more splayed arch in someone who does come through and compress through the medial side, a little bit more rotation as they go through mid starts. Now there are some overpronators that are used to running in neutral shoes and find any support to be a little bit restrictive. So we have had some success fitting 1080s in mildly pronated runners. However, there are neutral foot types out there that actually do look like this in a static position as well. So when they go through their transition, yes, it might splay out through the arch, but as they get engaged to go through their toe-off phase, the pressure is through the central part of their foot, so that second to third metatarsal toe-off through there. Okay guys, let's get to the exciting parts of the shoe review. Let's talk about the engineering breakdown. So, like all my reviews, what we do is we start from the ground and we work our way up. So let's get the version 10 and the version 11 here and talk about the differences. Now, this is not going to be long because as you can see at home, the outsole is exactly the same. So we have got the same hard-wearing rubber in that high impact areas for heel strikers at the back column through here. And as we come through to the forefoot, we've got full ground contact from the heel right through to the mid-starts phase through here. And then as we go through to the forefoot, exactly the same as the version 10. So you've got your 2 to 2.5 flex screws. You've got one through here, through that 10 point through there, and you've got the other flex screws that sit just underneath that sort of ball of your foot region through there to offer a little bit of stability. It is encapsulated through here, which is that just sits under your first metatarsal to give that large toe joint a wee bit more support in engaging and toeing off. So the outsole is exactly the same, and the reason they've kept the outsole exactly the same because the biggest decision New Balance had to make was what do they do with the midsole. So if they manipulated the midsole at all, they would have had to have changed the outsole. So the midsole, which is their sort of Fresh Foam 10 or Fresh Foam X midsole, is exactly the same as version 10. The feedback was it was a light, soft and cushioned foam underneath the foot. So that's fantastic. So they kept the same features and put it into the version 11. We're talking 8mm heel to toe drop. So yeah, it's kind of in that mid-range point. We do see some heel to toe offsets go up to that 10 to 12mm mark for some high mileage running shoes. And also when you start talking about other brands like your Hoka's, etc., we do sort of get down towards that 6 and 5, sometimes 4mm drop depending on the brand. So it's an 8mm drop. It runs pure. I find that when I sometimes put an 8mm shoe on my foot, it might feel like a bit of a 10, and vice versa, some 10s feel like 8s. It sounds contradictory, but this shoe does feel like I would expect an 8mm drop to feel on the foot. The biggest asset, as I touched on a minute ago, was the cushioning system. Now, it is so versatile. It does have a mild sort of rocker as you come through to that forefoot. So what that does is when the runner comes down from heel to mid-stance, cushioning and compression is nice and soft, so the entry point gets plenty of cradle and compression underneath the foot. But that rocker, as you come through to the forefoot, just aids in assisting an easier toe off as you get out of your gait cycle. So brands like your Hoka's, New Balance have trialled some rocker soles, and ASICS have started to dive into that market as well. But this little guy here does provide a very effortless and smooth toe off, and that's when you're both running at slower, easy running pace for your potentially a Sunday long run, or if you want to throw this shoe on your foot and do some tempo sets, maybe some interval runs, and you want a little bit more protection, I totally recommend this shoe through here because it does have a really nice snappy feel through that forefoot when you want to pick up the pace as well. Now coming to the upper, this is where most of the change has been made in this shoe. But when I say most of the change, we're still talking micro adjustments. The feedback from the running community globally was that the 1080 version 10 was a little shallow in this region through here, so right across the arch of the navicular area, and a little bit shallow in that forefoot as well. So what New Balance have done is they've kept the same materials. They're using that hyper knit structure, but they've provided a little bit more depth around the arch and a little bit more volume through the forefoot. So why have they done that? Well, they don't want to have make the same mistake twice. Now, where it became pretty confusing for us in store was when we were fitting a version 10, that conversation really came into play when someone was potentially between two widths. So use an example where we had a lady who might have been a B width traditionally, and she may have found this too tight up top around the arch area and a bit shallow through the forefoot, but we then put her into a D and it was a little bit too wide and sloppy. And then we're sort of halfway between two widths. The same discussion when you're talking about a men's from a D to a 2E. That's where it became a little bit tricky with this shoe, because the discussion was, well, sometimes you go a bit firmer and allow a shoe to give, but you don't want to be too tight across your navicular. And then if you go too wide and a shoe like the Hyper Knit, which has quite a little bit of movement through it, then it might become too sloppy after, a good third of the life of the shoe has been expired. So got to be kind of cautious about what we were doing with this shoe and how we were putting specific foot shapes inside it. So I must say, I think they've got it 100% right with the version 11. So I am sometimes a D width, sometimes a 2E, but 80% of the time I fit inside a D width. And I was actually, more comfortable in a 2E with this shoe. But I've dialed in, I've gone back to a D width, and I'm really satisfied with this little guy through here. So I think from a width perspective, it's true to what it says on the box. So I'm really excited that we're going to have a lot more success fitting this shoe on a lot more runners that fall into this profile. So when we're talking about width, we might as well let you know what's available in the market. Nothing's changed from the version 10. So when we talk about the ladies first, we've got a B width, which is standard, and we have a D width, which is marginally wider. When we talk about the men's width offering, we've got 3 widths. We've got a D, which is standard, a 2E, which is marginally wider, and then we have the 4E, which is the extra wide width as well through there. So talking about the upper and how it's structurally put together, as the asset, as we've touched on, is the midsole. It's a really cushioned, soft and responsive to the forefoot. The asset's a midsole. You want to make sure your foot is going to stay on that asset. So what New Balance do with their support system, starting from the rear of the foot moving forward, they use an internal heel counter structure. So this little guy here is a plastic system which sits on the inside of the internal collar system, which provides a little bit more support through here. So it keeps that foot nice and stable when it makes contact with the ground. And the height of the heel counter is exactly the same as what we found in the version 10. There was no real change with regards to the depth on offer. And it's got that little, again, I've said this before, but it's almost that little L4 pixie design through here. The idea behind that is you don't get as much pressure on the back of that lower Achilles insertion into your heel. It's nice and comfortable, the right amount of foam through the internal heel counter through here. So you can dial in with your heel lock lacing if you want to, but this shoe fits really pure in the back half of your foot, so your heel sits nice inside it. Then as you come through, as we've touched on earlier, there is that increased depth through the navicular and a little bit more width on offer through the forefoot using that hyper knit material, durable material, breathable material. It's there's a lot to like about this, so I'm really happy that New Balance haven't altered too much with regards to the materials they're using in their upper, which is great. Okay guys, so there you have it. That is my take on the 1080 version 11, and as I have touched on, it is a great update. Not a lot has changed. Obviously the changes are all on the upper, but it's been a very popular shoe globally for the best part of 12 months, and I can't see that changing through 2021. It is a go-to for a lot of mileage runners out there. It's got the perfect amount of cushioning on a light platform and a relatively generous 8mm heel to toe offset as well. So it's a very, very versatile, comfortable running shoe through there. If you happen to be a 1080 wearer and you used the version 10 last year and you want to give us some feedback, drop it in the comments field below. If you've tried on the version 11 or you've actually been running in it, let us know how you've been going. I'd love to hear about all of your comments out there in the global running market. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the red button, and we'll keep you up to date with all the information that we can in regards to new shoes coming out on the market. And until next time, guys, stay safe, happy running, be kind to each other, and we will see you out on the road. Take care.